Marcus sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the soft glow of his hollow slate. It had been 3 weeks since his best friend Lila left Earth for the Mars colony. The room felt empty without her bright laughter and gentle voice. He reached out and touched a photo of them on the riverbank, rain droplets frozen in their hair and smiles. His chest tightened at the memory. He missed the way she teased him about his messy sketches, and the way her eyes sparkled when she told a story. He wished he could hear her voice again, but he did not know how to reach her across the stars. Each morning, Marcus woke with the same emptiness. He forced himself through routines, brushing his teeth, eating breakfast, attending classes, but every step felt hollow. Kept glancing at his hollow slate, half hoping a message from Leela would appear. When nothing came, the silence pressed in. He remembered the day she packed her bags. She had hugged him tightly, promising they would keep talking every day. But between new friends, a heavier workload, and the vast distance, messages had slowed, and then stopped. Marcus felt a sting of guilt. Had he been too busy? Had he let her slip away? At first, he tried to send short notes. "Good morning, and hope you are well." The words felt flimsy. He reread each message before sending, erasing, and rewriting until his thumb hurt. Still, the slate stayed blank. No reply, he wondered. If she had forgotten him, doubt trickled into his hope. But deep down, he refused to give up. He closed his eyes and forced himself to breathe. He reminded himself that humans had crossed oceans, continents, and now planets, all driven by hope and heart. If people could build colonies on Mars, he could reach Lila. Marcus set aside casual texts and wrote a long letter instead. He poured out his memories, the late-night talks under starlit skies, the time they climbed the old oak tree to watch fireworks, the secret jokes no one else understood. He described how empty his room felt and how much he missed her laugh. He told her he believed in her new life on Mars, in her strength and courage. When he finished, he rewatched the words on the screen, making sure each sentence carried his care and pride. Then, with a trembling finger, he pressed send. He waited, staring at the hollow slate, until his eyes blurred. Hours passed. The sun dipped low, and the city lights blinked on. Marcus's hope flickered, but he held on. He reminded himself that hope was stronger than fear. He thought of human explorers who sailed into unknown seas, trusting that someone waited for their return. He pictured Lila reading his letter under a red rocky sky, remembering their friendship. He refused to doubt. He believed that true bonds could reach across any void. That night, Marcus climbed to the roof of his building. The air was cool and still. Above him, the stars shone like distant lanterns. He closed his eyes and whispered into the darkness. "Leela, I'm here. I remember you." He let his voice drift upward, carried on silent wind. He felt a warmth in his chest, a quiet strength. He was human, and humans never gave up on those they loved. He would find a way to reconnect with her no matter how far. In the days that followed, Marcus turned his waiting into action. He studied the colony's communication network at the university library. He learned about signal delays and transmission windows. He sketched diagrams of relay stations and signal boosters, borrowed parts from broken drones and old radios. Each night, he soldered wires under a dim lamp, his fingers growing steady with purpose. Friends who saw his work offered help. His teacher lent books on interplanetary messaging. Every small victory filled him with pride. He was building a bridge to his friend, one wire at a time. One evening, weeks after he first sent his letter, Marcus heard the gentle ping of his hollow slate. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst. He picked it up and saw Lila's face appear on the screen. Her hair was like fire under the Martian sunset. Her smile was warm and bright. She said, "Marcus, I got your letter. I thought you had forgotten me." He shook his head, voice catching with relief. "Never," he whispered. In that moment, distance vanished. Hope had carried him through. Human spirit had guided his hands. Across millions of miles, two friends stood, together again, ready to share new stories under distant skies. Marcus woke at dawn, the memory of Leela's smile still glowing on his hollow slate. He pressed his hand against the cold wall beside his bed and took a deep breath. The video call had lit a spark in his heart, but the room felt empty without her. He lay back, staring at the ceiling, wondering how he could reach her across the silent space between Earth and Mars. School felt dull that day. Marcus sat in the back row of his physics class, tracing lines on his notebook. He thought of Lila's laughter when she taught him her favorite poems. He wanted to share every moment with her, but could not. Each text he sent seemed empty. Then, he remembered that humans had built rockets and reached the moon. They could keep hope alive. At lunch, Marcus made a plan. He needed more than messages. He needed something real to send a gift that would travel with the cargo rockets. After classes, he walked to the interplanetary postal office. Bright posters showed the next launch schedule. Clerk explained that small personal capsules could ride on a supply ship to Mars in 2 months. Marcus bought an empty pod without hesitation. His chest warmed with purpose. That evening, Marcus gathered parts in his garage, pulled old electronics from broken drones, and sketched designs on paper. He called his friend Javier, who joined him. Together, they soldered circuits and tested small servos. Each spark and click filled Marcus with hope and the true spirit of human inventiveness. Next, Marcus recorded a voice diary. He spoke of the river memories and stargazing nights they shared. He laughed at their secret jokes and told Lila how proud he was of her courage. He printed hand-drawn pictures of Earth's blue valleys and green forests and tucked them into the pod, added a small Earth flag patch, and wrote, "May this carry my heart to you." With Javier's help, Marcus attached the pod to a booster from repurposed parts. When they tested the release mechanism in the backyard, the capsule rose on a puff of air and landed safely. Marcus felt human ingenuity coursing through him and knew he could overcome any distance with hope and determination. A week later, they delivered the pod to the launch site. Under floodlights, Marcus watched the great rocket thunder to life and climbed skyward. Flames trailed across the night sky. His heart pounded with pride as the pod rode toward the stars. He whispered, "Go, little capsule. Carry my words across the void." In the following weeks, Marcus focused on his studies. But he never stopped thinking of Lila. He built a small radio array on his rooftop. Hoping to catch any signal from Mars, he read technical papers and stayed up late writing code. His mother smiled at his new drive. Every small step reminded him that hope and effort could span worlds. One clear evening, Marcus saw a blinking drone approach his roof. It carried a small capsule stamped with Martian insignia. He caught it and held it close. Inside, he found a silver envelope and a smooth red stone. Lila's handwriting curled across the card. "Your gift arrived. It felt like home. I missed you every day. Here's a piece of my new world." He pressed the Martian stone to his heart and smiled through tears. The distance felt smaller now. He read her letter under the porch light. She described rust, red dunes, and twin moons. But most of all, she thanked him for his gift, which had brought her comfort and hope. She wrote, "Human hearts are stronger than any void." Under the same stars that watched the rocket's launch, Marcus spoke aloud. "I am here, Lila. I will always find you, no matter the miles." As he placed the Martian stone in a small wooden box on his desk next to his sketchbook, opened a fresh page and began to draw two friends standing together under a red sky with Earth rising above the horizon. Hope glowed in every line. That night, Marcus sat at his desk and wrote a reply. He thanked Leela for the stone and shared stories of his own days on Earth. He pressed a small white flower into the new pod and sealed it with care. Then he glanced at Mars glowing above and whispered, "See you soon." His hope burned brighter than ever. Days passed in silence after Marcus sent his second gift. Each morning he climbed to the roof, wiped the dust from his antenna, and stared at the empty sky. He held Lila's red Martian stone in his palm and thought of her laughter among rust-red dunes. The holoslate never pinged, no message came. His heart ached with the longing of two worlds apart. Yet deep inside he felt the familiar spark of human hope, that spirit that once carried people across oceans, mountains, and into space itself. Then news crackled through the university feed. A massive dust storm raged on Mars. Fine particles, swirling higher than any had seen in decades, would block all routine communications for days. Marcus sank into his chair, shoulders heavy. The broadcast said supply ships would wait out the storm in orbit. No calls, no data, only waiting. He closed his eyes, imagining Lila under those swirling clouds, unable to hear his voice. Sadness pressed on him like a weight. Still, he remembered humanity's history of facing storms and forging ahead. If explorers could settle deserts and polar wastes, he could find a way to bridge this silence. That evening, he collected every piece of radio gear he owned: an old handheld transceiver, cracked satellite tuner, spare cables and circuit, boards salvaged from broken drones. He spread them on the living room floor and tapped the parts thoughtfully. He remembered his physics lessons about signal frequency and amplification. If Mars's regular network was down, maybe he could catch stray echoes bouncing off satellites. If he could amplify them enough, perhaps Lila's voice could slip through the storm's interference. Early the next day, Marcus knocked on the door of Mrs. Lee, the retiree who lived below him. She once worked on Earth's deep space probes and still kept a workshop stocked with tools. When he explained his plan, building a high-gain antenna to catch Martian echoes, her eyes lit up. She called Mr. Patel from 2 floors down. He had old satellite dishes in his storage room. Soon, 5 neighbors gathered in Mrs. Lee's workshop, each bringing parts, drills, and steady hands. Marcus felt a lift in his chest. Human minds and hearts were stronger when they worked together. They climbed to the flat concrete roof above. The workshop had carried a battered satellite dish, 2 aluminum poles, and boxes of electronics. In the fading light, they welded, drilled, and soldered under a single hanging lamp. Marcus sketched wiring diagrams on scrap cardboard. When a cable snapped, Mrs. Lee handed him a spare, and he smiled. "Humans never give up," he said softly. The team worked through the night, breathing in the smell of metal and solder, their faces glowing with shared purpose. New antenna stood tall against the dark sky. Marcus carried a portable monitor and a set of headphones, his heart pounding. He tuned the transceiver across the Martian frequency band and adjusted the gain knob. At first, only static filled the room. Then a crackle. He held his breath. The white noise sharpened into distant syllables. Arc. Us. I. His hand shook as he turned up the volume. Lila's voice, thin but real, whispered, "Marcus, can you hear me?" The tears stung his eyes. He cupped the microphone and replied, "Yes, Lila, I hear you." Each word strained through the storm's barrier, but it came. She laughed softly. A sound he missed so much. "I never thought I'd hear you again under this storm," she said. The signal wavered and then steadied like a heartbeat. Marcus felt joy bloom in his chest. Around him, the team cheered quietly, proud of what human effort had achieved. A world apart, 2 friends spoke across millions of miles, bound by hope. When the call ended, Marcus lingered under the stars, the antenna humming behind him. Pressed Lila's Martian stone to his heart and whispered, "I will always find you." He knew the storm would pass and full communication would return. But even now, in the darkest silence, human spirit had found a way. Across the void, hope had carried his voice and hers back into his hands. Marcus woke before sunrise, his heart heavy with hope and doubt. He remembered the faint crackle of Lila's voice through the storm-proof antenna. That moment of connection had filled him with joy, but now the silence returned. He pressed his palm against the cool glass of his bedroom window and watched the sky lighten. He felt the ache of distance all over again. He lay back and stared at the ceiling. His room felt too small for his hopes. He wanted more than messages and gifts. He wanted to see Lila face to face. But tickets to Mars were for trained crew only, and Marcus had no such training. He did not know how to cross the void. He went to the university library and checked the transport records. Supply ships launched once every quarter. They carried food, tools, and a few volunteer engineers. Those engineers helped maintain colony machines, and they rode free. Marcus thought, maybe I can join them. But he had no engineering certificate. That afternoon, he walked to the community center downtown. Sign read, "Volunteers needed, Urban Hydroponics Project." the dome garden. Grew lettuce and tomatoes under LED lights. The project manager said they needed people with hands-on skill. Marcus raised his hand. He said, "I can help fix things." Inside the dome, a water pump sputtered and clicked. Marcus knelt by the pipes and studied the wiring. He remembered how he used spare cables on his antenna. He opened his messenger bag and brought out tools. He replaced a worn seal, tied wires with neat knots, and pressed a button. The pump hummed smoothly. Staff cheered. The manager, Mrs. Kim, smiled wide. She said, "You have a good mind for machines." Marcus felt a spark of pride. He tucked his hair behind his ear and said softly, "I like to fix things." He thought of Lila's gift pod and how he had built that too. He felt truly human resilient and creative. Later, as he packed up his tools, a tall woman in a flight suit walked in. She wore the insignia of the Interplanetary Supply Corps. She introduced herself as Captain Reyes. She asked Marcus about his work. He showed her his sketches and the repaired pump. She nodded with interest. "I'm looking for volunteer engineers." "On my next run to Mars," she said, "you have the right heart. Are you willing to train?" Marcus caught his breath. His palm went damp. "Yes," he said, "I will learn." His voice shook, but he held her gaze with honest hope. The next week, Marcus trained under Captain Reyes's team. He learned to read ship schematics and check fuel valves. He carried heavy toolboxes and climbed narrow ladders in the hangar. His muscles burned and sweat dripped down his face. But he did not quit. Each task he finished filled him with pride. He studied zero-gravity drills too, in a simulator tank. He learned to move like a starship mechanic. He felt clumsy at first, but he practiced until his hands were steady. He fell and floated, but he laughed and tried again. He remembered humanity's explorers on deep-sea vessels. If they could master unknown depths, he could master weightless halls. At home, Marcus still climbed to his rooftop antenna. But now he climbed with strength and purpose. He checked each cable and tightened bolts. Thought of Lila under Martian skies. He imagined her reading his letters and sending waves across space. He whispered, "I'm coming." Days later, Captain Reyes gave him his flight badge. It shone silver with a tiny Earth and Mars icon. Marcus pinned it to his jacket with shaking fingers. He felt like he carried the hopes of everyone who had ever dreamed of the stars. He tucked the Martian stone in his pocket as a good luck charm. The evening before launch, Marcus wrote one last message to Lila. He told her about the pump repair, the training, and Captain Reyes's offer. He thanked her for inspiring him. He wrote, "Tomorrow, I will stand at your world's door." He pressed send and felt a calm light his chest. Launch day arrived. Marcus stood in the hangar with the crew. The supply ship gleamed under. Bright lights, engines thrummed like a great beast waking. He slipped on his flight gloves and tightened his straps. His heart pounded, but he breathed slowly. He thought of Lila's smile in the distance that no longer felt impossible. The hatch sealed and the engines ignited. Marcus pressed his hand to the viewport. Earth's blue curve fell away. He felt a tear roll down his cheek, and he laughed softly. Hope had carried him across every challenge. Now, he rode the stars, driven by human spirit and the promise of reunion. As the supply ship arced toward Mars, Marcus whispered into the quiet cabin, "I am coming, Lila. Keep your heart lit." In that moment, distance vanished in the light of human resolve. He closed his eyes and dreamed of stepping onto red dust and finding his friend waiting. The void no longer held him back. The day finally came when the big silver ship from Earth landed softly on Mars. Marcus stood by the viewport and watched the red ground shake under the engines. He pressed his hand to the glass and felt his heart pound. All his work and hope had led to this moment. Around him, engineers opened the hatch and unloaded crates of food and tools. Dust rose in swirling clouds and settled on every surface. Marcus imagined Lila out there, walking in the same dust. He took a deep breath and whispered, "I am here." Hope warmed him like sunlight. He knew that soon the distance would vanish. He stepped into the airlock and felt the pressure change. His suit felt tight but familiar. When the doors slid open, he saw the colony's metal walls painted with colorful murals of Earth and Mars together. People in flight suits and work clothes rushed past him, each carrying supplies or checking sensors. Marcus followed the path marked Visitor Quarter, his heart beating fast. He carried his small bag with the Martian stone and a fresh gift pod for Leela. He passed under a sign that read, "Welcome to Ares Station," and smiled. Human hands had built this place from dust and steel. In the main hall, a bulletin board listed names of new arrivals and docking bays. Marcus scanned the list until he found Leela Hart next to Bay 7. His breath caught. Images of her written words and voice messages flashed in his mind. He walked to Bay 7, his boots clicking on metal grates. Technician waved him through. A checkpoint after he showed his ID badge. The hallway was quiet now, only humming with soft lights and distant footsteps. He felt a thrill of pride. He was no longer on Earth looking up at stars. Now he was among them, walking on a new world. He arrived at the greenhouse, where rows of green plants grew under glass. Warm air smelled of soil and water.
Ow.
Lila had always loved gardens. As he opened the door, he saw a tall figure seated by a table with seed packets and a hollis slate. She turned and gasped. She looked at him with wide eyes, then covered her mouth with her hand. Marcus's heart swelled. He rushed forward, dropping his bag. He knelt and held out the fresh pod. It was decorated with simple drawings of them under Earth's sky. Lila stood and stepped toward him with tears in her eyes. He reached out and took her hands. She felt warm and soft. Tears ran down her cheeks. "Marcus," she whispered. "Did not know you would come," he smiled and said. "I had to find you. We never stopped being friends." She led him to a bench under a tall cactus. Mars's twin moons shone through the glass. Light filtered like pale red lanterns. They talked for hours. He told her about the antenna, the storms, the training, and the flight. She told him about her work caring for the crops and what she missed most about Earth. They laughed and cried. Together, after their talk, Marcus gave Leela the Martian stone. She held it to her heart and smiled. "This is my home now," she said, "but your heart made it feel like mine." He pointed to the fresh gift pod. "And this is mine," he said. "It carries my hope." She opened it and found a pressed earth flower, still bright against the red fabric. She thanked him, her eyes shining. They stood and hugged. Around them, the greenhouse workers paused to watch the reunion. Marcus felt a wave of pride. He had crossed worlds with human spirit and love. In the days that followed, Marcus helped Leela and the gardening team use his engineering skills to repair a water filter and strengthen the greenhouse frames. Together, they laughed as they worked side by side. They shared Earth songs and Martian dreams. Leela taught him how to prune the plants, and he taught her how to repair small machines. The colony leaders saw their teamwork and smiled. They spoke of building more communication relays so that messages would travel faster. Marcus knew that human hope would push them to connect more worlds, not just their hearts. One evening, Marcus and Leela climbed to a viewing platform on the colony roof. They watched Earth rise like a blue marble above the horizon. They held hands and felt the silent promise of future journeys. "Distance is nothing," Marcus said. "We made it here." Lila leaned on his shoulder and whispered, "Together, we can go anywhere." Below them, the lights of Ares Station glowed with warm life. The red dust seemed to shine with possibility. In that moment, two friends stood. Under alien skies, united by human spirit, endless hope, and the knowledge that no distance could ever break their bond.